Ladies and gentlemen, my name is TotalBiscuit. Here is a port report for Dead or Alive 5 Last Round, which has been ported over by TECMO KOEI, and it's of course the latest in the series of 3D fighting games that are perhaps best known for their buxom women and beautiful characters. And I do mean beautiful characters. Everyone's attractive in their own way in this game. It's very egalitarian like that. But we're going to be talking about the PC port, specifically performance issues, and if anything's missing. You might notice something a little bit obvious. Where's online? It doesn't have it. This is a pretty big deal on PC. This is perhaps the biggest deal I could possibly imagine when it comes to a PC fighting game, because as you're well aware, most PCs are located in an office, and generally speaking, we like to play online where possible. It's not possible. They're claiming it's going to be patched in 3 months. Regardless, however, they decided to release it anyway and offered a 10% discount. I don't think a 10% discount truly justifies the lack of online multiplayer, frankly. I don't think it justifies it one little bit. That is far too ridiculous. And the silly thing about it is that by the time online multiplayer actually comes out, the chances are that the community for this, assuming, well, there isn't one, because you don't have online, is going to have gone. People won't be interested in Dead or Alive 3 months down the line, which is why it would have made more sense to just delay the damn game. Not really sure what they were doing with that. Now, if we head to the options menu, you'll notice that it's lacking in a lot of things because they have a launcher. One of those nasty little launchers with the weird fonts, and it has a very limited selection of resolutions available. It does support 4K, which is nice, so that's 3840 by 2160. So if you do have the computer to crank it up, it's actually quite nice to be able to downscale, and you'll be able to get a better resolution and better assets as a direct result of that. But it's lacking in a number of key resolutions, things like 1920 by 1200, which is basically the 1080p equivalent at 16 by 10 aspect ratio. That's not available. It does have 1080p, which is 1920 by 1080. And it has a couple of 4x3 modes, but not that many high-resolution 4x3 modes. Like, it's got 1024 x 768, but you're not going to be seeing really anything beyond that. The best resolution you can get at 16 by 10 is 1680 by 1050, which is not really that good. So it's lacking in a number of key resolutions. Now, the biggest thing about this is that they didn't directly port the PlayStation 4 version. They actually left out what they call the soft engine, which is supposed to make skin look more natural and improve the fidelity of the characters. That's not in the PC version, but it's in the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One versions. The effects of the game, the graphics of the game are mostly equivalent to a console, but a last-generation console. This is not the first time that we've seen this from a Japanese publisher. Indeed, the recent release of Dynasty Warriors had the same problem. They ported the PlayStation 3 version instead of the PS4 version. So, I'm not really sure what's going on there. The idea that supposedly porting from the new x86 platform over to PC would be easier seems to have gone out the window with some of the Japanese publishers. I don't know what's going on with that, and I don't have the technical knowledge to properly explain the thought process. But that is a problem, and the game will not look as good as it looks on a next-gen console, which makes no damn sense. It should. Now, what they have included is a PlayStation 4 version of Shadows, so you can go all the way up to 4096 by 4096 shadow resolution, and it's also got screen space, it's not screen space, it's SSAA available 1 times, 2 times, and 4 times. So you can make it look a little bit better, but what you're probably going to be noticing even in the background is it's the texture quality of the backdrops that really let the game down. Now, if we head to game settings, you've got a number of things. Online lag simulation is disabled because the damn thing doesn't actually work. You can turn hit effects on or off. You can change the camera style between action and classic. You've got dirt, sweat and water, and breast motion, natural and DOA, or off. You can actually turn it off if you so desire. It's rather distracting. And outside of that, you've got fight screen information, which you can turn on or off. So you've got move lists and move details at a random filter. This allows you to filter out certain things in random selection of either characters or things like that. So there's your characters, there's your stages, and you can actually cut some of those out. Speaking of stages and cut out, they cut out the Danger Zone and Crimson. So there's, for some inexplicable reason, 2 missing stages. We have no idea why that is, but they're not there. So it's really that simple. I couldn't explain to you why they're not there. They just aren't. Now, controller support. It has controller support for the Xbox 360 and Xbox One pad, and it allows you to fully rebind as well as giving you 4 different type options, which are default presets. I wouldn't recommend using that one, obviously. But you can actually customize, which is good. And you'll need to do this because if you don't have the custom option on, good luck actually getting fight sticks to work properly. I plugged in my PlayStation 3 MLG fight stick, the Mad Catz one, the Tournament Edition, and the default presets for it were completely useless. They were actually missing half of the moves. So you do have to recustomize. It works just fine on default with an Xbox controller, so if you don't have one of those, then you might have to wangle this in order to make it work properly, but you can rebind everything even on a controller. What you can't rebind are the keys, which makes no damn sense. So if you want to play this on a keyboard, don't. I mean, it's a 3D fighting game anyway, where you can move towards the screen and away from the screen, so it's not ideal for a keyboard at the best of times, but you're not going to have any luck with a keyboard. You either use the default controls or that's it. You can't rebind at all. It's very annoying. A minor complaint as well, with the fight stick, I found that I couldn't rebind my start and select buttons, meaning that I had no way to actually get out of a level. Like, I went into training, fought a little bit, I was like, oh, I'll just hit the start button to leave. Doesn't work. Tried escape, doesn't work. They use some very strange key bindings in this game, let me put it that way. It's really just odd stuff, as you can see. M is okay. L is back. Well, of course it is. What else would it be? Come on. Alright, now outside of that, you've got screen gamma options here, basic sound options. If you're looking for surround sound, you won't find any stereo only. Music, sound effects, and voices sliders available here. And then you've got language options down to the bottom here, which will give you numerous languages, for the most part European, but of course you've got Japanese, English, Japanese, Chinese, and Korean there as well. And you've also got Japanese and English voices. I would strongly recommend Japanese, because the English voice acting, as usual in DOA, is just goddamn terrible. Oh, man. So yeah, that's pretty much about it. It's pretty bare bones, frankly. Obviously, the most obvious missing thing is this, and that's probably a deal breaker for the vast majority of people, and I think it should be a deal breaker for the vast majority of people. Now, let's jump into a quick fight, just show you a little bit of performance and how the game actually looks, and then we can wrap things up here. Nothing really much to see, honestly. The game's locked at 60 frames per second, except in the menus where it runs at 30 for some inexplicable reason, so I don't really know what's going on. Even then, you can see some of these character models look a little bit out of date. Particularly, actually, Alpha 152, the texture work on that is not particularly good at all. We'll roll up Kasumi with her standard outfit, and a classic matchup with Ayane, there we go. I've been playing Dead or Alive for quite some time, actually, on a variety of different platforms, but without an online mode, I just have no interest in playing this whatsoever. Alright, here we go. And now, for some reason, the game is running at 30 frames per second. Now, so in the intros, it runs at 30, and then it goes directly to 60. So, you're probably aware with fighting games that frame data is very important, which means that the vast majority of fighting games are locked at 60 frames per second. And, you know, there's a good reason for that. So, it's the one genre where I'll kind of excuse that. It's not like 60's bad. It's just, a lot of us have better monitors now that will run at either 120Hz or 144. So, those are the kind of things that we kind of want to be looking at. Outside of that, performance is just fine, but outside of the character models, the backgrounds are not impressive. Fairly lackluster, out-of-date lighting effects. I mean, even the fire effects in the background don't look particularly good. It looks like a PlayStation 3 game. The texture work is absolutely disgusting on quite a lot of the background stuff, which is unfortunate, because that's not really the case on the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, and if they'd actually ported those textures properly, then we would have probably had a much better looking game. As it stands, we don't have a better looking game because they got lazy. It's really that simple. So the combination of those two things, the fact that it is basically a PlayStation 3 port and not a PlayStation 4 port, and the distinct lack of online multiplayer, makes this game extremely hard to recommend in its current state. I cannot imagine why they thought it was a good idea to release it in its current state. It's just absurd. Why on earth would you do that? It's like, hey, yeah, we're just going to release it 3 months early, we're not going to give you the online multiplayer, and then in 3 months down the line, when you've all completely forgotten about this game, we will give you online multiplayer. That is one of the dumbest business decisions I have seen in a while. That makes no damn sense. I cannot imagine what was going through their mind there. It really it's just silly. That's ultimately like the best way to approach it, is that it's silly. It just it has no practical purpose as far as I'm concerned. Well, there you go, folks. Dead or Alive 5. I mean, the port is, like I said, pretty lackluster, as some people have already pointed out. It runs just fine. I get constant 60, I don't get frame drops at all, even with shadow resolution and AA on maximum. So it's not like the game doesn't run fine, but considering it's a PlayStation 3 port, you bloody well expect it to on a computer of this power. I'm not impressed, I'm afraid, and unless you have someone at home that you can play with, I cannot imagine why you would actually even bother purchasing the PC version of this at this time. This is the kind of thing that you probably want to wait for a sale in 3 months after they've put the online multiplayer in. And then it might be possible to excuse the fairly out-of-date graphical fidelity on display here and some of the missing options. If you got a controller, if you're willing to wait 3 months, if you're willing to wait for a sale, and if you like Dead or Alive, there's the qualifying factors to buying DOA 5 last round. This should have been a better port. For the first outing of DOA on PC, this is a bit disappointing. My name's been TotalBiscuit, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.